mentioned that you press the leaves into the enamel and then fire. Did you take the leaves away or allow them to burn off in the firing process?
Actually, I let it completely dry, and then I peel the leaves off, and then I reuse them as well. So they've got a bit of colour on, so I kind of let that sort of inform the next piece, which is something I do quite a lot. Is that each piece is a development from what went before. So that flows through my sculptural works, my wall works. I mean, I do consider the wall pieces to be sculptures actually, but that is very much it flows. I hope it flows. That's what I'm trying to achieve by doing that.
My mind boggles as to how you actually put that together. So when you cut the pieces into pieces, but then you're trying to reassemble them, how do you make them fit?
Well, so I like a challenge, and I think it's part of my sort of how I like to think is that I like to give myself difficult sort of conundrums to resolve. And so in this particular piece, what I did is I was cutting some lines, and then I slid whole pieces up, and then cut other lines, and then and so I was making this kind of Rubik's kind of thing, and which was completely absorbing, and really, I found that really interesting, to put all that back together again. But yeah, so it's really great because it's like a problem which sort of tickles your mind, that you're sort of trying to. But what I'm really trying to do is to capture this energy, the movement of the trees and that sort of multiple facets all in one moment, that you are in a place and that you're seeing multiple things, aren't you? You don't just focus on a leaf, you see all these different things happening, thing after thing.
So there's an element of being in control because you can make it go somewhere, but also occasional frustration because it won't go where you think compositionally it might be interesting.
I guess, yeah. With this, I did have this idea about how branches, branch out and then move, and so I was sort of following that thought, but I was also thinking about the flowing water. So it was a bit like reflections of the branches in the water, and I was trying to capture that movement. That's was kind of something I was thinking about.
Yes.
I don't want to get into a debate about sculpture and painting and anything like that, but are they paintings as well?
So I consider that I paint like a sculptor, and by that I mean that I'm moving the material around, because it's very much about the material. So the enamel itself, the paint, I'm moving it like I'm approaching it as a sculpture. That's how I think about them. But I think it's everything, and there's also quite a lot of, it's all hand cut, and things like that. So there's a lot of sort of craft in there as well.
Yeah.
So it's quite multi, really, I think. But yeah, so I consider them as sculptural objects, but they happen to be very convenient to be hanging on a wall.
Thank you. Question here?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you, when you set out to do them, whether you complete it in its entirety or you've got several on the go simultaneously.
Yeah, thank you. I do like to have multiple on the go, and what I was saying about them feeding each other is that actually some of the green panels in this room about the pond, sometimes a piece from one found its way into another, again to sort of unite them, to knit them together. And when I'm painting, I'll always have extra glass that I'm painting at the same time, and I might be putting things that I might remember from somewhere else into this painting, and then great to then bring an element of that into one of the finished works. But so yes, so in this case I had all four on the go at once, and if I'm making like a series, I might do that. So the Sound of Oddford Brook, those were all consecutive. And concurrent. They overlapped, and then other times I'll be working on something at one stage and then start another because I want to just let it sit a bit. I'm not quite sure if it's finished, for example, and so I might start another one or even multiple, and if anything sits on my bench for a long time, I start to get a bit worried because if that happens, I actually have to put it away, literally, you know, put it away, and let it just percolate.
Yeah.
Do you have favourites, and what makes them your favourites, do you think?
It's really hard, isn't it? It's like children, you know. I love them all, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes though work particularly well in a space, and then that's great because they just, you know,
Yeah, come to mind.
settle in
Yeah.
and, you know, do their thing, and that's really great. It's a bit like the children, you know, doing well in something. They find their stride or whatever. It's a bit like that.
Yeah.
Just going back to lichen, do you generating colour from lichen itself, as were sort of medieval
I haven't yet.
scribes? Well, most of the Lindisfarne Gospels are
Yeah.
coloured from lichen, apart from the lapis.
Yes.
I just wondered whether you'd gone.
I haven't
That
gone that
far.
route. I haven't gone that route, but what I think is that you would probably find that it burns out in the firing, but maybe not. And I haven't done those tests. And actually, I was reading about it today. Exactly that. How, especially in Scotland, the lichen, the variety of lichen there. The colour, the lot lichen has fantastic. You know, it's such a huge body of plants. They're not plants, sorry. It's a kingdom, isn't it? Yeah, you can get both. You can get all sorts of things from it, from medicines to dye to all. It's got so many. It's a food as well. Yeah, it's got so many uses. But no, I haven't done that yet. But I must.
Just need a lot of it. That's the problem. Most of it's protected, I think.
Well, that's very true. You know, so I mean, the tucking mill lichen works. Were about me looking, and I did use a bit of foliose lichen to paint with a bit. But yeah, I'm quite careful what I take. Actually, you know, 'cause you know, you don't want to disrupt it, do you? You know, you want to admire and celebrate rather than.
Can I just ask one further question? Before you start to cut your pieces up that you've made, do you then record it before you start to just make a copy before you start to cut it up?
So I actually spend a lot of my time in my studio up a ladder because I'm looking down onto the table at the painting, and so I look at it before, and yes, I photograph it before, snap, you know, on my phone, and then I take lots of pictures throughout me both cutting it and then reorganising it, because sometimes I want to wind it back. Perhaps I think I made it a bit too vibrating or something, you know, and I need to cool it down a bit, for example, is something I might feel. So then I can look at my photography, my photographic record, and you know, that helps me to put pieces back where they were, sort of thing. But it is a bit like knitting at the same time. You know, so it's quite boggling, yeah.
Any more questions?
I was just going to say, so is it a bit like a jigsaw without a box art?
Yes, it definitely.
And it's all put together before you actually stick it down, so you can play around with it all around.
When I start to stick it down, I completely know what I'm going to do. Yeah, so that part of the process is a process. Is you know, I could do that with music or podcasts or whatever. I have constraints with like the adhesive drying time, you know, so I have to sort of, and this sort of elements in the craftsmanship which I have to be very careful of. But yeah, when I'm ready to start, that's it, you know.
So, but at that point, you've still got 3 or 4 on the go, and you're swapping things around to the point where one is completed and the other 2 or 3 need more, and you've got one done.
If I'm starting to put the glass down on one, that is complete, and the others I feel are at a stage where they are in progress normally, and quite good to finish one so that you've kind of got the space, and you're then allowing the work to kind of have that relationship still. You're allowing that to become a part of the works.
What about your sculpture hanging outside?
Oh, that's there's a sculpture outside the gallery, thanks David, called Nano Crystal, and that is about photosynthesis. It's developed from the form that you find in a solar panel, which is a crystal which converts photons from the sun into electricity. And I'm really excited that at some point in the future that's going to be cast as an aluminium sculpture, because it exists at the moment as a fiberglass and glass sculpture. So yeah, the next stage is to cast it in aluminium, and yeah, with my local foundry thing. That'd be great. Yeah.
So thank you, Steve. If you didn't see that on the way in, have a look on the way out. It's perfectly safe to stand beneath it. A couple of quick reflections from me on hearing that talk that have kind of amplified things that I've thought about your work already. One is, I think I've been walking through the world with my eyes closed, because especially in nature, and I think that what you're doing is a sort of deeply felt reconnaissance on behalf of all of us to go and experience these places as deeply as you do, and then to put so much work into bringing them back so that we can experience it as well. And it's like, my resolution is sort of to put the phone down for half an hour or something tomorrow and go out for a walk or sit somewhere and actually open my eyes and look. And if you think about the ratio we heard in that talk there of inspiration to process, it was, I suppose, the ratio you would want to hear about, which is all inspiration, and the process is in service of that. That you're doing all that just to bring the experience back to us. So those are my reflections on it. Huge thanks to you, not just for tonight, but for being part of the gallery and the gallery story. We're talking about a world-renowned sculptor here with work in really important collections, and for you to add this gallery to your CV is an honour for me, as you know. So I wanted to tell you in front of everybody.
Absolute pleasure to be here.
You will have found one of these on your chair when you come in. Do take one if you hadn't seen one before, because there's a lovely essay by Rebecca that tells you about the work we've just seen. There's lots thanks to you for coming as well. It's a full house, which is always good to see. Thanks for the great questions and your attention. And yeah, do stay when the floor clears. Do stay and mingle and chat and meet each other and have a look at the work. Thank you.